The day before embargo lifted on the RX 7700 XT and the 7800 XT, I discovered a massive error in my testing. I'd been testing for a few days up to that point, and it was 24 hours before embargo lifted that I caught this error. I pretty much wrapped up all the benchmarking that I was planning on doing, and I started compiling the data, putting the footage side by side, digesting the numbers, when I started noticing a very odd trend. The RX 7700 XT was trading blows pretty evenly with the RTX 4070. Now, that could have meant one of two things. Either A, AMD was being very generous with their launch of this card. You know, it's priced at $450 MSRP, and it was competing side by side with NVIDIA's $600 MSRP card. Or B, it was maybe that I accidentally was testing the entire time with the system set to PCIe 1.0 in the BIOS instead of 4.0. Could you guess which one it was? Yeah, it was that second one. But don't worry, the results I did end up releasing on embargo day are correct. I ended up pulling an all-nighter to retest everything. And I got that out later on, not at the 6 a.m. right at embargo time like a lot of the bigger channels usually do. I got it out closer to noon that day. But how could I have made such a big error without noticing it during the testing? Well, let's talk about it right after this. Real quick, this video is sponsored by Skytech Gaming, Intel, and Signal RGB, who have partnered up to create this super unique Starfield themed gaming PC. This is a very powerful system, pairing Intel's i7-13700K CPU with AMD's top-of-the-line RX 7900 XTX graphics card, which is all easily accessible by an appropriately themed service hatch design. This PC was custom built by Skytech Gaming and integrates Signal RGB software to control the indicator lights on it, which reacts to your real-time in-game stats in Starfield. They're giving this away to one of you lucky viewers out there. To enter this giveaway, check out the link in the video description down below. It'll have all the details you need. Good luck to everyone entering, and now let's get back to the video. Alright, so how did I royally screw up and make that big of a mistake? Well, a few weeks prior to that, I had been doing a lot of testing between PCIe Gens 4, 3, 2, and 1 for a different video which has not been released yet. But while doing that, I was switching between the different PCIe versions on my test bench, and I thought that when I wrapped it up, I had set it back to PCIe 4.0. But that wasn't the case, and for the most part, that's not something that is typically at the forefront of my mind. I usually, for the most part, all the computers I build or my own personal computer is usually either set to auto or just like the highest version there is. I don't think most people think about that on the day-to-day basis, you know? So of course, because I had forgotten about that, it came back to bite me in the butt. Now you may be wondering, how did he not notice right off the bat that the system was set to PCIe 1.0? I mean, the performance must have been debilitating, right? I mean, if you look at the specs between Gen 1 versus Gen 4, you're looking at around a factor of 8 for the transfer rate and throughput between the two. So naturally, you'd think that that would be easy to spot, right? Especially if we're gonna be running at like 1440p, demanding games, you know, at the max settings. That must be a lot of data that the graphics card is sending through the PCIe slot, right? Well, not really, and I'll show you with this example why. So on the screen, you're looking at a set of runs from one of the titles that I tested. This is at PCIe 4.0. I'll give you a moment to take a look at the performance, notice the trends like how the 7700 XT actually beats the 4070 here, which in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, this has been confirmed by other reviewers as well. And the 6700 XT comes in last as expected. Look at things like the active frame rate and frame time graphs, the CPU and GPU utilization, stuff like that. I'll give you a moment. Okay, we good? So I lied. You are actually looking at PCIe 1.0 results right now. Sorry for tricking you, but it was to show you that if you are looking at these results thinking it is PCIe 4.0, they could have fooled you, right? I'll now show you what the numbers look like for actual PCIe 4.0 with these cards in these games. We do see uplifts across the board, of course, but it's not as huge of a difference as one might expect. We went all the way back to Gen 1 and it still performed decently well. It was by all means playable, it wasn't a stutter fest, so yeah, that's how it went under my radar the entire time I tested it incorrectly. Now, I thought these results were really interesting, so I wanted to look through the side-by-sides of a single graphics card in the same exact system at the same exact resolution and graphics settings for all the games I had tested and show you, what the differences are between PCIe Gen 1 versus Gen 4. And I think more people are going to be surprised by what we're about to see than not. We'll take a look at the RX 7700 XT specifically since it's the most recent card out of the bunch that I tested, and we'll start off with Apex Legends. PCIe Gen 1 will be on the left and Gen 4 will be on the right. Here we have very negligible differences, with Gen 4 only coming out 3% faster in average FPS. The 1% lows show a more noticeable improvement, 21%, but if you're playing this on, say, like a 144 or even 165Hz monitor, I'm not sure if most people would be able to tell the difference, to be honest. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, very similar trend. Gen 4 versus Gen 1 performance are very close with regards to average FPS, and 1% lows are within single-digit percentages difference as well. Hopefully you're beginning to see how this was able to slip by without me noticing until I put the entire picture together. In Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, there was a larger spread, a 14% difference in average FPS this time, with a 23% difference in 1% lows. But again, looking at only the PCIe Gen 1 results standalone, nothing looks too out of place. In Cyberpunk, we see a very minimal 3% difference in average FPS and 60% difference in 1% lows. Interestingly enough though, when we turn on ray tracing, the results get even closer to the point where they're nearly identical. Because we're at such a low range of frame rate here, that 1% difference does work out to a 5 and 6% difference, but realistically, it's basically within the realm of noise. In Diablo 4, we've got single-digit differences for both average and 1% lows, both scenarios which are very playable. I want to remind you again that this is running at 1440p at max graphics settings, no FSR or any resolution scaling. We are pushing the capabilities of the graphics card at this point. Checking out Forza Horizon 5, we also see single-digit differences across the two scenarios. Moving on to Halo Infinite, this was the closest results I saw between Gen 1 and Gen 4 with regards to percentage differences. In Hogwarts Legacy, it was very interesting. The average FPS was the exact same between Gen 1 and Gen 4. However, there was a noticeable difference in the 1% lows. It's only a 6 FPS difference, but 6 FPS out of 30 makes for a whopping 20%. Here's where you can see a pretty noticeable difference in the frame time graph. See how much there's more spikes and peaks between the two? We haven't been seeing that across all the other titles, but I think it is the most apparent here. In The Last of Us, we've got very close results in the single digits of percentages differences. This game launched with pretty poor performance due to bad optimization initially, but several patches later, that has been relieved. And again, it's surprising as heck to me for, one of the more difficult games to run, a very modern, recent game at max settings, mind you, for Gen 1 to perform as well as it did. In Spider-Man Miles Morales, we see the performance gap opening back up to the biggest spread we've seen so far. Both average and 1% lows are in the double digits of percentage differences. Still gotta give credit to the Gen 1 performance though, because it's not too shabby all things considered. And last but not least, Starfield, the newest game in my benchmarking suite, which I'm still trying to determine what benchmarking route I want to take. For the time being though, I tested in one of the earlier action sequences where we make first contact with the Crimson Fleet, and here we see Gen 4 performance leading by 11 and 13% respectively. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on the PCIe Gen 1 performance. Did it do way better than you thought going in before you saw the results? Or did you expect it to do that well, prior to seeing anything? Let me know in the comments below, because honestly, like I said earlier, just testing and looking at the results individually, I completely missed it. I was thankfully able to catch it before my, initial results went live, so no damage done there. And after this, I will make sure to never ever let this happen again. When I started noticing the odd looking data, I reached out to my other PC tech content creator friends that were also sent cards prior to embargo. And of course, with my luck, none of them were planning to release a day one video, so they didn't even touch it yet. I reached out to people like Mark from Scattervolt, the Toasty Bros, Zach's Tech Terp, Ostox Hardware. We're all in like a big group DM together, and nobody had tested their cards yet, so I didn't have any numbers to compare with my peers. And comparing back to my old RTX 4070 results from when I initially tested it earlier this year, I did notice some slight decreases in the performance. I just couldn't figure out why. The first thing that went to my mind was like, could there have been some kind of like patch updates or driver updates that might have lowered the performance? So I went and I rolled back the drivers to the exact ones I used months ago, and I couldn't replicate the new results I was getting. So that's when I knew something was really up. So I had to go digging, and it wasn't until I combed through like one by one every single BIOS setting, and that's when I saw it. Like, it stared at me right in the face. PCIe Gen 1. And the biggest, oh my, facepalm moment occurred. So I had to scrap all my data and footage that I had captured up to that point and start all over. Keep in mind, this was less than 24 hours before embargo the next day. So it was a very long night trying to get everything retested and re-benchmarked. It really sucked then, but to make lemonade out of lemons, I was at least able to use some of those results from the PCIe Gen 1 to make this video and to share this story. So it wasn't a complete waste at the end of the day. I will be the first to admit that I am far from perfect. I just try my best, and sometimes that means still messing up. But at least, you know, at the end of the day, if I learn a very important lesson out of it, then it's worth something. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video though. Hope you all enjoyed it and either found it insightful or entertaining, or maybe you learned something in one way or another. I want to thank you all as always for watching and for continuing to support the channel. I want to give a huge thanks to the channel members and the super gifters for their above and beyond support. Be safe out there, and I will see y'all down in the comments as well as next video and or stream. Bye.